Hi guys, I would usually say welcome to today's reading, but today we are not doing a reading. This is just a bonus little video that I had an idea I was going to make a post about, but I decided to make it in a video format instead to make it a bit easier to follow. So as you can see from the title, today's video is going to be about how to get the most from and make the most out of any pick a card reading that you might listen to or watch. So before I used to read for myself, I also used to watch a lot of pick a card readings, and through that I developed a system. And I also used this system when I would read for myself too, but the foundations of it came when I used to watch a lot of readings here on YouTube and figure out how to apply them to my life. Through applying this method, things have vastly changed for me, and I'm sure one day I'll talk about that, but that's not the purpose of today's video. I just want to show you the best way to have a kind of system that allows you to not just use tarot for entertainment and for, reassurance, but how to actually use it in an actionable way. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you 3 things that I do and that I think would be helpful if you want to start to use tarot to change your life and to really see some proven changes in your world. So let's jump right in. So the first tip I'm going to give, which you can probably guess from the setup here, is journaling. Now I'll show you exactly the titles and the headings I use. I'll do an example using one of my own readings. But the first thing that you want to do is write down the name of the reading that you're going to watch and also the date that you are watching it on. So I'm shamelessly using one of my own readings. So I'm just going to write the title. The date today is the 10th. Also write down which pile you were drawn to. Okay, so the first heading is going to be notes from the reading. And basically there's 3 different sections that we're going to write. So I'm going to quickly watch the reading now, make some notes on it, and then I'll show you what kind of things I have written, and then we'll move on to the next section. I'll show you what to do next. But the very first thing is to play the reading yourself and just write down anything key that the reader says. So any information that they give about, the situation, the circumstance, advice, we're just going to put it all in bullet point form here. So that's what I'm about to do now. I'll just do that. So I've just finished making notes now on the reading, literally just going through, and any points that were made or anything that I said that was useful I put down on the sheet. I have a separate heading here of the advice pointers. Now for step 2, what you want to do is you want to work out how this relates to your actual life situation. So the first heading was notes from the reading, so number 2 we're going to write how it applies to me. Now how you do this bit is up to you. You can just do bullet points again, or you can use this as an opportunity to, really journal and get in there and write down, pages and pages and pages about things that want to come out, more like when you write things in like a freestyle way, when you can put a heading and then write your responses underneath it. It's up to you how you want to do it. I'm just going to show like a portion of how I do it for me, but this part is kind of up to you how you want to do it. As long as the overall idea is that you go through and read these, and anything that sticks out to you or anything that you feel like a reply to or a response to, you can put down, or if there's something where you're not quite sure how it applies to you, you can put it down and then start, free writing your thoughts underneath. that's also valid. So like I said, I'm just gonna do maybe one or two to show you as an example and show you how I do things, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the final step for journaling like this. So for me personally, as I'm reading through this, I can see the inability to let go is coming up, holding on to something. So first I'm going to consider that aspect. So I think the thing that I hold on to a lot and have an inability to let go of is traditional work, I'm not going to lie. I hold on to my ideas around success for sure, and traditional career routes. When I was reading those things, that's the first thing that came to mind. So in my situation, I'm going to write down that I have opportunities to pursue more regular lines of work that I've done in the past, let's put it like that. What else is there? So my way of doing it, I like to not really do the long form, written out kind of way. I only tend to do that if it's something that, requires a lot of thought. But for this, because it was coming to me as soon as I saw these bullet points, I knew what this was about. I'm just doing it in a more simple way, but feel free to really get in there and write, as much as you need to about these things to get it off your chest. There was another one here. Presented with a different way of doing things, for sure, taking choices. Yeah, I did used to enjoy my old career at one point, so that does resonate. There is a fresh energy. I'll tell you, but you'll see me write it down anyway, that I have a decision of how much I want to go back to a job that I used to have versus pursuing, this kind of opportunity and this kind of work. So there is a decision, because this reading somewhere was talking about a decision, I saw it. Yeah, two different paths, not taking a path open to you. So there's a decision to be made regarding, I would say, like, commitment. Regarding commitments in my career. Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of done how that applies. Now we're going to take a look at the advice and see what the advice is that I'm being given. I have to make a choice. Yeah, at the minute I'm delaying the choice, so the advice for me is don't delay my choice between the two. Don't choose the familiar path, which tells me that my priority right now should be my creative work. So prioritize creative work, I would say. Because creative work is new to me. The kind of traditional office admin roles were what I was used to, so that would be a familiar choice to me. My own joy, yeah, definitely my own joy is in doing creative work, for sure. And yeah, I do struggle to believe in myself when it comes to putting myself out there, so I need to believe in my own capability with regards to creative work. So I think that's like enough examples from me, but what I'm really trying to emphasize is that in the reading, you're just writing, while you're listening, you're just writing down, the things the person is saying. This is the time now to reflect. And when you notice something that applies to you, you put it down exactly how it applies to you. Because, when you watch a general reading, or pick a card, they're talking to everybody. They can't give you the exact thing. Whereas if I was reading personally to you one on one, we could then have a conversation back and forth. I could say these things to you, and you'd be able to say to me, yes, I am struggling with whether to pursue an offer that I've had to take an admin job or to pursue a creative pursuit. And then we could, target the reading more like specifically after that. But obviously, in a pick a card reading, you can't really do that. So then I feel like it becomes our job as the viewer to identify which parts and how the energy that the reader is expressing relates to you. And that's the point here of writing down, trying to make it into like a personal reading in a way by putting down exactly how what they're saying translates into your situation. So that's basically the goal of like the second part of this journaling, translating how the general energy applies to you specifically. So how the inability to let go, I'm writing down what I can't let go of to make it specific to me. So that's all you have to do for that. If I was continuing and doing this for real, I would keep going on this, but for sake of not keeping you for too long, the final part is you're going to do number 3, which is action plan. Now, in this reading, this is a little bit more straightforward because usually, for example, if you had something here like that was talking about having to prioritize yourself over like certain demands you were having, you could write down, for example, if you really enjoy going out for walks, you'd be like, oh, take, 2 long walks a week. So what we're trying to do is, this is advice and good advice, but we actually, for it to be useful, we need to put down how we're going to do it. So let me see what I put. Don't delay choice and prioritize creative work. So I would say create a timetable and plan my creative pursuit. And I'm going to put heavily favour filming, editing, etc. So believe in my own capability can also do that. So you can make an action plan for things like that. I know it sounds a little bit abstract, but to help you believe in your own self, I think it would be a good idea for me to maybe do some journaling, focusing on my own creative achievements. So basically, as you can see, the idea here is to take the advice. I mean, usually there would be more advice than this. I'm just doing a short version, and then make little action plans. Sorry, my camera cut out there. So I think I'd already made the points though, that the action plan is just based on this advice and putting it into actual tangible things that you can measurably do. Moving things from being more abstract ideas here to being actual concrete actions here based on what you've written for your own advice. So let's move on to the next tip. So the next tip I have is actually to do with your phone and your phone background. So what I think is a really good idea and something that I have done a lot in the past is choosing like a specific card from the reading, from the video that I've just watched, that really sums up nicely the advice. You don't have to be an expert in what the cards mean to do this. You can just go back, to the part of the reading where the reader was given advice and focusing on a card that they say is important. Or if you have watched a lot of readings and you're more experienced about this, you might be able to choose something based on just what you've written here as advice, or based on things that you've written down here. It really depends. So what you want to do is choose a card that embodies the message, that is like the example of how you would do this. For example, in this case, because it's about taking risks and believing in your own strength and your own capabilities, and maybe having to do something that's a bit scary and a bit risky. In the reading itself, I was talking about the strength card, but also I can kind of get that from the advice and the actions here, it is something that's going to take a little bit of being brave and strength to choose a path that's not that common and is kind of unconventional, it's not familiar to you. That's a scary thing to do. So I would say the card that embodies all of this advice the most is the strength card. So there's two ways you can do this. I like both methods, but I recognise that not everybody has accessibility to some things. But as you can see, my old background is the Ten of Cups, because at the time I was really working on building my own happiness and trying to build a happy family environment. This was just before I got married, so that was my focus at that time. So we're just gonna just go onto Google and literally type in this case, just the strength card. Go onto the images. And there's all kinds of different decks you can choose, whichever strength card resonates with you. There's tons to choose from. So I really like this one, to be honest, because she looks really calm, just sat on the lion's back, moving strongly but peacefully. So then, you can just screenshot that card and set it as your lock screen or your background, so that whenever you see your phone, which I'm sure all of us look at our phone too much throughout the day, you get that reminder. It's not like you consciously focus on that card, but it serves as like an unspoken reminder and like a little boost sometimes when you're feeling scared or frightened. When you see the strength card, it reminds you, to own who you are and to be like, you've got this, it's fine. The other thing you can do if you have a tarot deck to your disposal is you can go through and find the strength card and put it somewhere that you'll see it. Like sometimes I put a card in front of my computer so that I see it when I'm sat at my computer, sometimes next to my bedside. But obviously, if you share a house with other people, or if you're worried about it getting lost, then you can just do it on your phone. I sometimes do one, sometimes do the other, sometimes do both. So that's another thing that I think is useful, having a lock screen or a physical reminder in the house of, your own enjoyment. Or you could print off an image if you wanted to do it that way, didn't want to use an actual card. That's another way of doing it. And yeah, so that's tip number 2. Now, tip number 3 might come as a surprise to you, since, I have a tarot channel, so it's kind of going against exactly what you think I'm going to say. But my advice here is only watch readings that you're drawn to, and do not watch too many readings back to back. I'm guilty of this, I've done this, I'm not trying to shame you, I'm not saying that some days it's not tempting or some days you can't help it, I get that, we've all done that, but the best advice for how to make tarot readings more effective and work for you is to not watch too many, and only watch them when you are drawn to them or have made some kind of change. For example, what I'm trying to say is that too much information can be overwhelming, and it actually serves to then just confuse you and keep you in a state of inaction rather than add to a plan to help you. It just becomes information overload. So because of that, once you have your bullet point list here, and of the actions that you want to take, once you have that bullet point list together, I wouldn't really aim to seek out another reading until you've actually made some of the changes that you've written down on that list. Now, a caveat to that is, obviously, if in this example this was about my work, if I then felt drawn to get a reading that was more focused on, relationships or, I don't know, things to do with my home or my family, that's completely different, because this is a work reading. But in the realm of what you're talking about or what you wrote notes on, I wouldn't really aim to add to that until I'd already done some of the actions on my list. I'm not saying you have to have completed the whole list, you can get updates in that time, but I'm just saying that once I've made this list, we need to do some of the things on it so that the energy can change around us, so that we get a new message that applies to us more. Otherwise, we're just going to sit and watch lots of readings and have not much things shift around. We need to give some time for actions to be undertaken and time for the consequences of those actions to come to light before we then get an update. So this time, this way of doing things as well ends up being really, really motivating and really affirming, because you can have the reading, apply some of the actions, and then, some days later, or a week later, 2 weeks later, however long it takes for to do some of these things and let it settle a bit, it feels really like you've accomplished something when you get a different reading that starts, complimenting you on what you've already done and gives you pointers to go to the next level. You really feel like you've achieved something, and it feels like you're on target. It feels like you're progressing and moving along. So my advice would be, don't watch too many in one go, because the danger of that is getting too much information and not knowing how to apply the information. Because it's a good thing to have advice, but advice can only ever stay as good advice and useful advice if you actually, work on it and use it. So whilst it sounds kind of hypocritical coming from me as someone who posts a lot of readings, not every single one of them you have to watch. Not every single one of them will be for you. Just, and you can always visit them at a later date in time. So it's like if I post a reading on, I don't know, on Saturday, but at that point you're still working on your list, who knows, in a few weeks later you might want to go back to that specific reading. So that's the way I've found is best and has helped me out a lot. Obviously, I'm advocating for you to do what you would like, but sometimes I think it's interesting to see another perspective on how to apply the advice that's been given and how to make the most of things. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I hope these tips helped. Try it out and let me know how it goes. And I'll see you in the next reading if you feel called to watch it. Bye.